Hello, I'm James McHale and thanks for joining me for ABC News. Today, the Prime Minister rallies her new look cabinet. The new Labor ministry is sworn in, but there's polling pain on the eve of Parliament's return. A fiery exchange as former New South Wales Labor Minister Eddie Obeid appears at the corruption inquiry. Heart attack survivors risking a second fatal attack.
I actually thought that I was just very unfit and needed to get fitter, and so exercised harder, which really made me a ticking time bomb.
And Baltimore triumphs in a close contest against the 49ers at the American Super Bowl. Her new look ministry has been sworn in, and Julia Gillard has given Labor MPs a rallying call for the year ahead. A caucus meeting in Canberra has completed the government's reshuffle with the election of a new Senate leadership team. But as the Prime Minister prepares for Parliament's return tomorrow, her party's taken another dip in the polls. Here's political reporter Gillian Bradford.
An election day to reshuffle and now a swearing in.
I, Mark Alfred Dreyfus.
Mark Dreyfus has risen from a parliamentary secretary to become the highest law officer in the nation.
For more on the day in Canberra, I'm joined by political editor Lyndall Curtis at Parliament House. And Lyndall, the last piece of the puzzle in the wake of the weekend resignations is now in place. What has the caucus decided?
Well, the caucus has elected Stephen Conroy, the previous Deputy Senate Leader, as Senate Leader. Penny Wong, the Finance Minister, has been elected as Deputy Leader. While some had wanted her to stand as Leader, she decided not to because of the commitments of her family and her portfolio. Now, it's said the reason the Prime Minister delayed the reshuffle was to get this decision closer to the sitting of Parliament. There is some questioning from some MPs about the timing of that they say they don't understand why the timing had to happen the way it did.
Tempers are fraying at the New South Wales corruption inquiry, with former Labor power broker Eddie Obeid giving evidence. He strenuously denies allegations he's part of a criminal conspiracy. Mr Obeid clashed repeatedly with both the Commissioner and counsel assisting and was reprimanded for interrupting proceedings and dodging questions. Eventually, the Commissioner warned the one-time State Minister he could be charged with contempt. The ABC's Jamelle Wells is at the inquiry in Sydney.
Within a few minutes of the hearing starting this morning, there were angry exchanges between Eddie Obeid, the counsel assisting Jeffrey Watson, and the ICAC Commissioner David Ip. Eddie Obeid sat quietly in the witness box, looking very serious and frowning for a while, and then the counsel assisting asked him outright, "Have you engaged in corrupt conduct?" Eddie Obeid's other four sons are due to give evidence later this week, along with the former mining minister Ian McDonald. Jamelle Wells at the Independent Commission Against Corruption in Sydney.
A committal hearing for the man accused of murdering Sunshine Coast schoolboy Daniel Morecambe has resumed in Brisbane. 43-year-old Brett Peter Cowan is accused of abducting and killing the 13-year-old. The ABC's Josh Bavis is covering the case. To today's business news, and finance reporter Elise Morgan joins us now. And Elise, there's a few economic numbers out today. What do they tell us about how the economy is travelling?
Well, James, they show it was fairly weak leading into the end of last year and at the beginning of this year. Today we've had unofficial inflation figures that show consumer prices rose only slightly last month. So inflation is still sitting comfortably within the Reserve Bank's target, and that gives them room to lower the cash rate tomorrow if they so choose. Other data shows it's getting harder to find a job in Australia, with another slide in the number of jobs being advertised. The number of positions on offer have dropped 15% in the last 4 months now, which has economists tipping that the jobless rate will rise to 5.5% this month. And there's been another slide in housing approvals. That's worrying, as that's the sector the RBA is hoping will be able to fill the void behind that drop-off in mining investment. And Head of Economics Ivan Colquhoun at ANZ says housing starts were particularly weak in Western Australia.
That sort of fits back with what we've seen in job advertisements, where Western Australia and Queensland have been the two states that have seen the biggest weakening in job advertisements recently, and that's, I think, the mining sector and resources sector reducing their demand for labour.
So, Elise, do these numbers give us any hint as to whether the Reserve Bank might cut rates when the board meets tomorrow?
Look, James, there's no doubt that today's suite of data was on the softer side, but most economists don't believe that the economy is weak enough for the RBA to move this month. On the upside, we've had a rebound in resource prices. China's looking okay, as is Europe and the US, at least for now. So inflation data over the last few months also shows that prices are very much contained, with the annual rate sitting around the lower end of the RBA's target. On the other hand, we've got strong evidence that the jobs market is weakening, as we've just heard. Trade-exposed industries continue to struggle with that high dollar, and the construction industry is also struggling, and that's meant to be coming in and taking up some of that slack that's been left by the mining investment boom. But despite this, most economists believe that for now the RBA is going to hold tight and leave the cash rate at 3% tomorrow. But they do believe there will be a cut around the middle of the year, bringing in some relief to borrowers, which will take the cash rate to 2.75%.
Elise Morgan, thank you. 10,000 Australians die from heart attacks each year, and doctors say not enough is being done to stop patients from going on to have a second, sometimes fatal heart attack. Medical reporter Sophie Scott has the story.
Margaret Kilby isn't your average heart attack patient. With a strong family history of heart disease, she had her first attack at 35. Despite a healthy lifestyle, she went on to have several more.
And I actually thought that I was just very unfit and needed to get fitter, and so exercised harder, which really made me a ticking time bomb.
1 in 4 people who've had a heart attack will go on to have another one, and the risk of death is high.
We'll cross now to your local newsroom for a look at what's coming up at 7 o'clock, then stay with us for the weather details.
Thanks, James. Coming up at 7 o'clock, former New South Wales Labor Minister Eddie Obeid has been threatened with contempt of court at a corruption inquiry in Sydney. The Commissioner became exasperated with Mr Obeid after he repeatedly dodged questions. The former Labor power broker was also told to stop smiling while giving evidence. Mr Obeid has denied allegations he was involved in a criminal conspiracy to defraud the people of New South Wales. Police are hoping the release of security footage showing a weekend assault might help find the attackers. A 27-year-old man was knocked to the ground in Sydney's CBD early Sunday morning. He was punched twice after objecting to a group of men photographing his drunk friend. These 2 men were part of the group, and police are hoping to identify them. Doctors want more done to stop patients suffering a second heart attack. Heart attacks kill 10,000 Australians every year, but 1 in 4 survivors go on to have another one, and the risk of death is high. There are calls to set up a national approach to preventing second heart attacks. Doctors say more patients need to undergo cardiac rehabilitation programs. At the moment, only 1/3 of patients take part. And name the new recruits. These English Springer Spaniel pups were born just before Christmas. An online auction has now been launched to name the police puppies, but their names must start with the letter B. The money raised will go to Police Legacy. They're just some of the stories we're following. All the details at 7 o'clock.
A gusty southerly change has pushed through Esperance, and that's helping to fan bushfires. The gusty southerlies have dropped temperatures, though, from a top of 39, sitting currently in around about 24 degrees. Now, that southerly change will also move through to the west coast of South Australia tomorrow. Unfortunately, there's little in the way of rainfall with it. As we can see, there's not much cloud across the continent. But this high-pressure system is directing some onshore winds along the east coast at the moment, so there's been some low cloud and some relatively light showers. We've also got an upper-level disturbance set to move through into southeastern Queensland. So that's going to see a bit of an increase in this shower activity over the next 24 to 48 hours. But again, we're not expecting overly significant falls. So that rainfall fairly widespread, or the potential of showers widespread along most of the east coast, including New South Wales and Queensland. That southerly change moving through the southern part of the continent. Now that will lead to a mild day for the south coast of Western Australia. Still looking at a top of around 31 and just a little bit of cloud for Perth. We've got northern northerly winds beginning to freshen across the southeastern centres, so temperatures beginning to pick up. Adelaide warm with 34, but showers along the east coast, even pushing through to the ranges, so 1 or 2 possible around Canberra, but they should clear during the afternoon for Sydney, and showers persisting around Brisbane. And up across the monsoon, we've still got some isolated showers and thunderstorms, but at this stage we're not looking at overly significant falls at this stage, and a mostly dry day in the Alice. James.
Graham Creed, thank you. Finally, New South Wales Police have some new and very cute recruits, and a competition is being run to name them for charity. This puppy is the standout of the litter, playful, outgoing and motivated. Because of that, he's already been named Bryson in honour of Detective Inspector Bryson Anderson, who was killed in the line of duty last year. There are 7 others yet to be named, and the public can bid online to give them one.
All proceeds will go to New South Wales Police Legacy to make sure that no child or partner of any deceased former or serving officer will ever feel forgotten or in need.
Names will be restricted, though, to the letter B, so there may be a new generation of buddies and Bens in the force. Thanks for your company. Bye for now.